believe it or not, I am Professor Elemental. Usually, at the moment, I'm just a dude and just someone's dad, aren't I? In jeans and a t-shirt. And I thought I'd do it as myself. It's quite nerve-wracking, actually, kind of just chatting without my hat to hide under and a big jacket to distract. But that's kind of the point of this panel, so I thought it would be better just to do it as me. During the course of this panel, I'm going to be talking about how to create your own secret identity. Which I'm sure a lot of you already do through cosplay and so on. Although this is slightly different from cosplay, definitely no better, no worse, but just a slightly different thing as far as I'm concerned. I thought I'd ramble a bit about how I took on the mantle of the Professor and the unexpected delights and tragedies that have occurred since. Things that you'd never expect. And also, most importantly, how it relates to you, like what, if you fancy doing this sort of thing, a few tips on how you can possibly, if you want to, create your own fictional identity and live in it whenever you fancy. And of course, at the end, there'll be time for any questions and all of that shenanigans. So, when I first started out as a rapper, I loved hip-hop desperately, really wanted to be part of hip-hop, but grew up in like sort of Suffolk in a tiny little suburban village, so I was slightly at odds with all the things that I was listening to. And when I first started rapping, and to show how long ago it was, the only way to kind of meet other rappers when you're in a village in Suffolk is through a magazine they had called Hip Hop Connection, and they had like a little sweet little classifier, like wanted rapper, master out dope lyrics, like, oh that's me. And I met up with this guy called Manage, who's still a rapper in London, and I was like, oh God, finally loads of raps I'd written, none of my friends were really interested, and I met this guy Manage in South London, and he turned up a massive bloke with like a big pit bull on a rope. And I was like, hi, I'm going to come to stay with you. And he's like, all right, come with me. And went back to his flat. He was really lovely, showed me lots of the ropes and was doing lots of rapping. And I kind of wanted to emulate that a little bit. And we went and I spent the night, I've never been so terrified, sleeping on his settee with his pit bull nuzzled against my balls. We went and recorded our first song the next day, and I only really remember one of the lyrics. I was very influenced by a lot of the American hip-hop, and a Suffolk accent wasn't really cool, so I tried to go a bit London, so I had a horrible mix of American and London, and I was rapping lyrics like, yeah, I've had it up to here, I'll take your mum from the rear, yeah! It was horrible in every respect. And I kind of came back with my friends and said, oh guys, look, I made a rap song, I started doing rapping, and they were like, what is that? You're rapping about fighting. You wouldn't win a fight any more than any of us would probably win a physical confrontation. So I was kind of torn, and even through doing rap in Brighton, I was still slightly at odds with my environment because they were proper battle rhymers, and they were a lot better at hiding their middle classness than I was. Most of them were about as middle class as I was, but they were much more adept at putting on like a hard London accent. So I sort of struggled with it because I didn't want to give up this thing. I loved hip hop so much. And then I went round to Tom Caruana, who is the guy who makes all of my music, and he wanted to make an album about different periods in time, with each rapper doing a different sort of time period. And I did a Victorian thing. We did a load of mushrooms and watched a documentary on Vivian Stanshall. And I'm like, let's do Victorian! And I made the first song. It's on the Indifference Engine, the song where I kind of break into the gentleman's club, and the Professor just popped out fully formed. He just burst out of my chest like an alien. He was just suddenly there, almost completely intact. He was kind of all ready to go without me kind of having to do very much to him. And even within that first song, I was like, this is it. This is where I was supposed to be. And then I started doing a few shows with hello, who are you? Thank you. Ah, a pint of gin and some goodies, thank you. So I joined up with this crew who were doing a Victorian sort of variety show, and it was purely made up of acts that nobody wanted to see, that couldn't get booked anywhere else. So they all teamed up together. There was like a really slow escapologist and a man with a really shit travelling freak show, and I kind of went along and did my little professor thing and had my hat for the first time. And then it just blossomed and bloomed and developed from there until I could finally kind of go it alone and do the videos and all the rest of it. But rapping a character, I realised, and sort of without thinking, and this is something that I recommend to you. When I was first trying to rap, I was sort of trying to fill in the blanks. Like, oh, not very hard, I better try and be hard, and a bit London, a bit more working class than I am. And the Professor, kind of through accident, and more recently through by design, when I try and work out new things with him, he's everything that I'm ashamed of, really large and bold. Like he's really egotistical, he thinks he's amazing, he's terrible with the ladies, he's extraordinarily, well, he's more kind of he's a parody of upper class, but he's kind of very, very middle class as well, babbles a lot when he gets excited, frequently drunk. These are not things that I'm particularly proud of in myself. In fact, they're the things that I'm, most scared of sometimes. So the idea of getting them all down and then using them almost like a suit of armour that you can wear when you face the rest of the world is a really lovely thing. And we've all got those things, and your set of stuff will be completely different to mine, but we've all got that pile of insecurities. Probably a good starting point if you're trying to work out yours is the thing that you think about just before you go off to bed, about sort of some kind of socialising you did earlier in the day, and you go, oh, I can't believe I said that to that person. That is probably a good start for where the insecurities spiral out from. So it's a beautiful thing, kind of like finding all of your weaknesses and kind of building them into your strengths, kind of turning them into something that you can use. And for me, it's done me no end of good, and it's taken me a nice full circle as well, because by doing that, finally I kind of escaped all the kind of the hip hop culture that I didn't really fit in with, and then sort of found my way accidentally back into steampunk, which kind of leads me back to conventions, which plonks me nice and neatly back with my people. It's like, oh, here's where I belong all along. I wanted to be hanging out with nerds, but the hip hop boys weren't really doing that, but the music wasn't right, so kind of it's just sort of, managed to kind of, using the Professor, it kind of allows me to sort of reshape the world into the way I'd like it to look. And also it is, as you know, if you do any kind of cosplay, even coming to a convention like this, if I had to walk through these doors and not knowing any of you, and I wasn't coming here just as a puncher, I was coming here on my own, I'd be fairly terrified, or if not terrified, a little bit lonely at the very least, kind of buying a cup of tea, hoping that I get talking to somebody like-minded. But as you know, if you've ever done any cosplay, or even been at a fancy dress party, when you're in a costume, not only do you have a kind of strange extra confidence, but people have got an immediate reason to start talking to you, and potentially to take you on their adventures with them as well. And it's not just, I don't think, me doing the Professor and standing doing musical stuff, but also just the fact that you're dressed up. It says, hello, I've got something to say. It's kind of like you're there. And it makes social occasions much more exciting. Sometimes being someone else for a little while can take you on some really odd adventures, and before you know where you are, you're in a Welsh caravan park in a mobile home with 2 dwarfs, 3 dancing girls, Craig Charles, and a famous comic editor dressed as the Pope, all doing something I can't really talk about on a panel. And it's kind of, for all the travel lodges in Basingstoke that I've had to sit in on a Tuesday night, you get these occasional moments like, yes, this is why I do this is why I end up there. And actually Kitacon was like that last year. Don't come round here with your swanny whistle.
Sorry, mate.
What are you even doing here?
I want to learn.
Finally.
I won't get too close.
Yeah, yes, keep your distance. Remember the court order.
I never believe you.
So moving on to kind of the ways that you can create this kind of shenanigans for yourself. Obviously cosplay is a good start, because most people, I'd imagine, actually, for those people who do cosplay, it's probably best to ask you, I'm not going to guess your reasons. Why do you do cosplay? What makes you choose a certain character? Say. Say again?
Because I like them and I was not.
Yeah, nice.
What did they say?
Because you like them, because it's a character that you kind of identify with, I think. What makes you kind of choose a character for cosplaying? You've obviously got loads of effort and made it look super cool.
Yeah, I mean, I don't copy a character exactly as they are. I like to be creative and make them different from what they are. So I love the creativity, and I get a lot of people coming up to me talking about like what I've done, because I'm not just that. Oh, you've done something.
Yeah, that with a twist. That's a really lovely way to do it, actually. That's sort of halfway between traditional cosplay of getting exactly like the character and me doing my own silly nonsense, kind of putting your own twist on it. I did a convention in Ireland, Kitacon, which was really good, and there was someone there with like a steampunk Pikachu. I was like, wow, that's an unusual one to pull off, and they totally pulled it off as well. And it was much more interesting than either being a steampunk or just being Pikachu. So yeah, that's a super way. That's a nice start on building your own and adding your own creativity in there. What about you ladies over there? Like, what attracts you to a certain character? Is it the look, or is it the character themselves, or a combination?
For me, with Ellie, I have problems with my weight. And Ellie is big and she's bold and confident, and I wanted to experience that, so I had to be her.
Yeah, that is spot on, perfect. Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what I was talking about, isn't it? The thing that you're a bit like, I'm not sure about showing this to the world. Like, actually, I'm going to own that. That's mine, and I'm taking it around and showing it off. That's a really lovely thing to do. Oh, perfect. Shush. Go on. So that's kind of a good starter. Finding things that you like. With cosplay, it's often finding a character you identify with, or that you think you can put a creative twist on. And in terms of doing your own one, find something perhaps that is quite close to you as well. Look at the characters that you identify and look at their sort of fictional characteristics, I think. And because some of the best characters and some of the funniest, say, comedy actors are basically playing extensions of themselves. And it's the same with, and the professor is basically me when I'm drunk. There's not much in it. I get kind of tipsy and posh and excited when I talk too much. If you look at someone like Steve Coogan with Alan Partridge, there's a lot, if you see Steve Coogan being interviewed, there's a lot of Alan Partridge in him. Or even, slightly differently, someone like Seth Rogen or William Shatner, who don't really play many parts. They basically play versions of themselves in each thing. So it's kind of worth looking at a bit of, one of the things they say in stand-up comedy is your on-stage character is an exaggerated version of yourself. So it's worth kind of looking at what that exaggerated version would look like. And it might be that you don't want to necessarily dress up like that and perform it on stage. It might be there's a million ways you can have your own character. You can just dress up in your own head. I think the power of imaginative play in your own mind is quite underestimated. If you draw, you can simply have it as a drawing. It could turn and spiral out into a comic or an animation, or just be a drawing that you keep for you. Those kind of little sort of powerful sigils and things that you just have to kind of give you a bit of a creative power base. There's lots of different ways, and obviously with music, that's an even easier way to do it. So if you've got any kind of creative outlets, having your own character can be very useful. You might want to just use them for that one little project. You might find that they spiral on and that you're stuck with them forever. Speaking of which, there is obviously, particularly, I'm only speaking for me here, but there is a downside to being sort of partly fictional. It's very dangerous to be an exaggerated version of yourself a lot of the time. It's got me into all kinds of troubles and scrapes. And it also feels like the professor should be out. Like if I do a gig, I love it as well. I want to kind of hang out with everybody afterwards. And the professor would be there, go, oh, let's have some more drink, this is brilliant. And then suddenly you realise you're doing 4 gigs a week, getting twatted 4 nights a week, and it's not doing you any good. It's also it can take a toll on your, particularly any sort of more normal friends you have, the sort of friends who wouldn't understand what this convention is, if you've got any of those out there. It can be quite a leap trying to explain it to them, and it can also be very boring for them as well. Like for me, I catch up with mates and they talk about their varied and interesting lives, and then I say, I've done 12 gigs this week, and this is the first one. Like, there's only so many of those stories. There's definitely things that, choices that I've made as the professor that I would not have made as Paul, and sometimes that's brilliant and sometimes it's very dangerous. And likewise, I'm frequently warned by my other half not to be him. Occasionally I'm like, oh shit, I know we're on holiday, we can go to Spain, let's go to Spain! You're doing it again. Stop it. While we're talking about it, another box of shit with your face on has arrived and it's blocking up the wall. I'm relatively narcissistic and self-obsessed anyway, and basically having a job where you drive from place to place trying to sell products that are predominantly brown and have got your face on the front. It's not, I don't know if it's very healthy in the long term. I don't know if it's very good for me. So make sure you don't get lost down that rabbit hole. I'm lucky, I've got small children and a disinterested partner to kind of constantly bring me down to my kids have just sort of started to notice the professor, and they're not at the stage yet, as they eventually will be, where they're desperately ashamed. At the moment, there's a kind of sort of curiousness. And they kind of treat me like I'm a cross-dresser, in that I kind of occasionally I'm getting ready for a show and putting on my hat, and my 6-year-old will just walk past going, "Mum, Dad's being the professor again." And stuff like that. We love you anyway. Say that. So that's how it happened, and a few tips on how to do it, and the upsides and downsides. This panel is not going to be the full amount of time, because you don't need to hear me ramble on for that long. I'll take questions in a minute, and you can then buy any of my brown products with my face on. But I'll just finish by with a story of how the professor saved my life, actually. That's probably a nice way to end, because it can be quite dramatic sometimes, having this character to use. And a couple of years ago I did a gig in France. It was like a party on a boat, and it didn't go very well. And none of my banter really worked. It was a bit, and I didn't know anybody, and maybe it was the language barrier slightly, but the professor wasn't actually doing his job and allowing me to socialise with strangers. I was like, ooh. And I had about 6 hours left. The party was going to go on for ages. I couldn't get back to the hotel. So I went down the marina a little bit, and I just sort of sat in a quiet spot and looked out at the water, and lounged, and then eventually fell asleep. And I woke up with someone kind of giving me a bit of a kick to the ribs. Oh, Jesus Christ, stood up, and there were 4 big, scary men, scary Frenchmen. And it was a precursor to a mugging, and they were just like, what's talking really angrily at me, and what's it, sort of shoving me a little bit. And I knew that I was about to get the crap kicked out of me, and I was a bit too far away from the party. And at the very last moment, before things got really hairy, I managed to grab the hat and very quickly say, "Oh, fancy seeing all of you here, isn't that nice? Could I go on your cigarette? Please don't get that knife out." Anyway, I can't stop to chat, you're all gorgeous. See you all soon, toodaloo. And then skipped my high skipped So arguably, the professor did get me in that situation. But he also saved my life. And actually, that pretty much sums up what it's like to have him to carry around with me. I often get asked if I'm, would you ever do any other characters? Me and Jim have discussed this actually, and it's always a possibility. But I think I'm kind of stuck with the professor. I think even as his popularity wanes, and I'm doing smaller gigs, I think that is who once we found each other, we're kind of stuck with each other. Much as the professor is stuck with Jeffrey, I'm very much stuck with my pith helmet. But so far, it's been a lovely ride, and I heartily recommend any of you, all of you, to give it a try, even if it's just a doodle or a poem or a single sheet of A4 describing what it would be like, just as a simple creative self-development exercise. You never know where these things are going to spiral off into. Cool. So that's pretty much it for me. Have you got any questions about anything at all? I'll solve your problems.
So yeah, it sounds like you have no trouble whatsoever in maintaining character when you're the professor. But so have you ever had any problems with it? It sounds like occasionally you do, like the story you just said, you had a bit of a problem with it, with staying in character. But is it normally pretty easy?
Yeah, it is a bit of a blurry one, and I definitely struggle in American conventions where they kind of put on a sort of really bad English accent and demand to talk to me. So, sir, forsooth, it is good to see you. I have come from the airship Isabella, and I want to have scones. And I immediately just want to cut through it and go, all right, nice to meet you, there we go. And I get uncomfortable being the professor, sort of too much off the stage. I kind of like, if I'm standing having a fag outside and you come and chat to me, I'll be a little bit professory probably because I'll be a bit drunk, but it's nice to have like a normal conversation. Otherwise it's really irritating, isn't it? Like you don't want to, much like my girlfriend's problem, just even talking to the professor for more than about 20 minutes would drive you up the wall, to be honest. So, yeah, I quite like muddying the waters. I think it's quite nice to blur it, and it makes life a lot easier as well. And again, if to stop that problem of not being able to sort of stay in character, having a character that's quite close to yourself means you can switch back and forth.
Okay.
Any other questions?
How did you turn the professor into a brand, for lack of a better term? Because
No, you're right though. That's totally right.
I mean, you've got a pile of your face right now.
It's spot on. That's absolutely it. It happened really naturally. I'm very pleased to say, and it's the beauty of collaboration. Much like you guys with doing cosplay together, and I'm sure you worked on your stuff together and swapped ideas and all that kind of stuff. And any of our geeky pursuits, maybe less so with like the comics and read, that's not very communal, but things like gaming and stuff and live action roleplay, those kind of collaborations make all the difference in the world, and I really thrive on those. So most of these things just came up from someone getting in touch and saying, I've got a games company, I want to make a professor game, and then me writing back and forth. Like the book is the best example of that, in that a friend of mine who, she sent me some stories, she's called Nimue Brown, and they're amazing. I said, should we do something together? And she wrote me loads of emails in different characters, and I wrote back as a professor, and she knew the plot of the whole story, and I didn't know what it was. So I was genuinely clueless as she wrote me into this kind of murder plot. And it's like those little lovely organic collaborations, and the comic was much the same way. Just the more that pop up, the more you do, the more things people see, and the more, someone says, you got a comic, I draw comics. I'm like, I'll chip in and do something. So yeah, it's scary sharing your creative ideas, particularly when they're in their embryonic stage. But particularly if you do it with someone who won't judge you and is close to you and all that kind of stuff, it's well worth swapping those kind of things, or agreeing, right, if you're going to do that, I'll do it too, and then we'll swap and see what it looks like.
So have you ever done improv classes? Because I think that's a really good way to develop your ability to kind of riff and bounce off people when you're playing a character live. I mean, that's really
it's something I really wanted to do, but ironically, the professor stopped me having the time to do the things that make it better. Damn you! I love you, H. So no, but I think that's a really good idea. If it's something that you want to do beyond just dressing up and taking it out there, yeah, that'd be amazing. Actually, it's a very good way to do it. But inevitably, with me, it was the baptism of fire of being constantly so many uncomfortable situations where someone said something or heckled me, or I got them up on stage and they've said something funnier than I'd come up with, and I go, good. When you've done that a few times, you make sure that you've got responses and techniques and all the tricks to get around.
Well, it seems like you're a natural anyway, yeah, so you need the classes to learn it. Yeah.
And not though, so like my friends used to really take the piss out of me on stage for my sheer nervousness and unwillingness to engage with anybody and being kind of like this. It's only doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it over and over again. Like any creative thing, whether it's art or playing the piano, you just got to just keep doing it through all the jump through the scary hoops. Jumping through the scary hoops, that's going to be my autobiography title. Yes.
Out of all the people that you've collaborated with over the years, who's been your favourite to work with?
I don't know.
Present company not included.
Carry on, I'll just...
Actually, there were kind of two answers to that. Quite genuinely, it was one of my favourites, because it was really, I liked the narrative that I had a go at him, and then we managed to finish off that beef in a song and have the battle everybody wanted us to have, and kind of it was also partly like a musical apology for being a bit of a cunt. So that was a particularly satisfying one, but I have to say, I do get pangs of guilt about this. the collaboration with Tom Caruana, who does the music, I often feel like I get to sort of stand in the spotlight and go, look at me, and those people think I kind of do it all. And he makes all of the beats behind me, often comes up with loads of the ideas, mixes it, and I go around his house and master it, and all of the Professor stuff I wouldn't really have the backing and the kind of sort of rich sort of musical sound I've got without him. So I do recommend tcrecords.net is Tom's little mini record label. It's T is in a cup of tea and C is in the ocean. And he's one of these amazingly prolific people who just like churns out tons of incredible music and just gives it all away all the time. He's done the thing recently where he got loads of amazing, like really weird Beatles samples from cover versions of Beatles songs and mixed them up with very carefully chosen hip-hop bits. It's called Pepperland. It's amazing. So yeah, he's easily my most satisfying one, just because without him I definitely wouldn't be doing it. Any other questions?
You mentioned about the Professor being an exaggeration of yourself. Are there any elements of the Professor that's perhaps not something you naturally are, but something you want to be?
Oh yeah, that's a very good question. I think his inventiveness in actually creating physical things, like I've got none of that. I can't make anything, and he's always got huge, elaborate machines that do things. They go wrong and stuff, but that's not the point. He's still got a jetpack that can like fly past a dinosaur and special time travel trousers. And yeah, even with I did a panel last year about costume. It was so painful with all these Americans. It was at the San Diego Comic-Con, and they were just talking at great length about their costume and what it meant and where it came from and how they sewed the stuff. And then they got to me, I was like, well, I stole the jacket from a mate. These are a dead man's trousers from a charity shop, and these shoes came from Shoe Zone. So yeah, I like his, and I also like his. I do quite like his life. I'd love to live in a tumble-down mansion, not have to do anything much. So I've made it as close as I can. You there with the goggles? You had a question?
Yeah, hello. I don't have the confidence to share my work, and I don't know where to go either to do it, and my writing and stuff. And do you know anywhere where I could perhaps share my story, but you know.
Yeah, I think it can be really...
Tumblr.
Really?
DeviantArt, actually, there's a pretty thriving...
I know, but I'm scared that people are going to go, your shit, go away.
See, like the good people too.
Take the Professor's song, Don't Feed the Trolls.
I think it's a gradual thing as well. I think when it comes to is it writing your particular kind of craft or what?
Yeah, I've been doing it for about 3 years. I've got a cupboard like this full of my story, and I can't organise it. I don't know what to do anymore.
Yeah, you can get lost in your own kind of creative stuff, can't you?
I've got lost in my world.
Yes.
In the world, I want to go to the world that I've made, and I want to live there. I don't want to be a teacher anymore.
I think you want to kind of like you need a bit of a purpose. Actually, sometimes having a deadline or a show or something like that. Sometimes me and Jim both have moments where we've got like a new song and like, oh, I don't want to do it, but I need something new for this show. Or I'm just going to be doing Cup of Brown Joy forever, and people will stop booking me.
I'm writing the same stuff over and over and over again, and I'm getting really frustrated.
Have you got any? Have you shown it to anybody ever?
I read it to my boyfriend, my fiance. Sorry, to my fiance now. And he basically just sits there going, yeah, okay, whatever.
Well, maybe it's time to kind of find someone new that you can send it to, and find a fellow steampunk. Maybe even going on one of the sort of if it's a steampunk stuff, or is it steampunk it is?
Yeah.
Or maybe go on one of the forums, somewhere really friendly, like Brass Goggles, where it's full of lovely steampunky people, and say, look, I've written loads of this stuff, I'm a bit nervous about showing it to anybody, has anyone got the time to have a read and give me some constructive criticism? So rather than putting it out in the world where, you know, who knows who can see it and what reaction you'll get, just show it to a few friendly people first, or if you've got any close friends who might be interested in it, and then just broaden out from there, because confidence doesn't come all at once. You have to build it up gradually, as I'm sure you know from teaching kids how to do things. They have to kind of feel confident, and start being more boastful as well. Start saying,
I am
I've done
when
it and
I'm
I'm
in my
really
character.
proud of it.
I am when I'm in my character, but I'm not when I'm in different character suits. I do get boastful and basically I scared a Kitacon guy coming down the lift. I was like, what's this contraption? Shut up, wench!
Feels quite good though, doesn't it? It's quite nice.
Because the lift was talking at me.
Well, maybe use that. If that's when you're
Yeah.
feeling more confident, then that's the good way to show off your stuff. Maybe it isn't you that's written the stuff. Maybe it is a particular
I don't
character
wanna-
who you can kind of show it off.
I
to.
teach adults and I don't want my students to find out about this.
Create a persona that publishes the work, so then it's not in your name. So you can create a character that actually writ the books and not you.
Yeah, distancing yourself is quite
Yeah.
nice. Yeah.
Create several in case people tell one of
It can get very complicated. So we've got enough points in our
That's
heads.
actually a good idea. I might actually create a persona in which to write in. Yeah.
Yeah, I know a couple of people have done that and it's
Yeah,
worked really well for
because
them.
Real me, there's teacher me and then there's real me, and teacher me can teach, but real me is a nervous wreck.
We've all got different versions of ourselves. We're all different with our mums and dads than we are with our partners and we are with our old friends or new friends or convention mates. You know, we've all got these different personas, and just find one that you're comfortable with, and start off with friendly folk, and then once they tell you, hey, this is all right, then start broadening it into the world, because it's lovely if it's serving its purpose for you, but when creative stuff that you're doing for yourself stops serving its purpose and stops being a refuge, and you want to start getting it out there, then it's a sign. Life's too short to have a great big wardrobe full of stuff that no one's read.
Yeah.
We're not around for very long. You might as well get it out there. It might be your new career, entirely new life for you. So yeah,
I don't want to stop teaching.
do it, shove it out there into the world.
I've done it before though with other work. I've just created a wardrobe full of it and then left it and just buy
Well,
it.
sometimes that's all right though. Sometimes it's the journey and not the destination with creative stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
Another thing, like I was saying with Tom Caruana, he makes loads of music just for the sake of making music. Doesn't make any money out of it. He just does it for the process, not the end kind of result. So it does. Even that serves its purpose. There's a lovely Alan Moore speech that he does in the library where he's talking about everyone's always saying, how do you become a writer? How do you become a published writer? And that's not what you're supposed to do. You're a writer if you write things down. That's all it is. The Spice Girls aren't musicians, he says, just because they've got a record contract. You're a writer if you write. It's not necessarily about becoming famous or getting well known for it or making money off it, unless that's what you wanted to do. I hope that helps. And you'll probably find somebody here who, not necessarily in this room, but at this convention, get chatting to someone, see if there's anybody who'll take your email and have a look at your stuff and read it and give you some ideas back.
It gets a bit blue in places, so you don't mind that, do you?
Suddenly everyone's like,
Oh, God.
That will get more volunteers.
yeah.
We're all here for porn.
You know all those people that you were worried about criticising you? Did you hear the cheering?
There's a lot more nice people out there than there are other ones.
I'm getting very
Yes.
warm and very things.
Hang on a second over there, I'm excited. There you get all excited now. Yeah.
It's comparatively frivolous, but please don't shatter my illusions that your love of tea is an exaggeration.
Jesus, no. No, there's nothing. Hopefully, there's not much in him that I'm not proud to say as well. It's not like he's a Tory or something like that. Do you know what I mean? Like something. All of his. I always pride myself on having the same views that he's got, and the tea thing is absolutely genuine. And a really close friend of mine last night came to a gig. Felt so bad, just like, oh, I'm so sorry, I missed your birthday, and gave me like a little bag of some beers and some really nice coffee. And I thought she was taking the piss, and I was like, ha, what's that? Threw it over my shoulder, as because I was all professored up, just like, oh, I just thought you might like it. Shit, sorry. So no, the tea thing is absolutely genuine.
How do you feel about coffee?
Like that, basically. I don't like what it represents. It represents speed and getting on with stuff and doing stuff and being all quick. Tea's everything we are, isn't it? Tea is leisurely and you take your time and it's all it's much better. I like the process of it.
Sorry, I was just thinking about it.
Since you mentioned tea, what's your favourite tea? I'm just curious.
Well, more quantity over quality. A bit like I am in my comics, really. I like just loads of them rather than any good ones. Probably, I mostly drink Yorkshire tea.
Yorkshire!
I do get a bit stuck, actually, that's where me and the professor do. I do get unstuck when people start talking about really fancy teas and the delicate ways of making them, because I just want a lot of it all the time. Yeah, big old one.
Speaking about your quality over quantity and everything, sorry, quantity over quality, have you picked up any Terry Pratchett yet?
No, I haven't. I've got too much stuff. I'm not that bothered by him. Like, I love his imagination, but I don't find him that funny. I don't find him that hilarious. I think I'm just a bit. I've got so many comics to read, and then there's a pile of horror novels, and there's all the stuff with her face on. I haven't got time. One day I'll get to it. I'm listening to Good Omens though while I'm driving around at the moment. The BBC. And that is going. I do quite like it.
So do you ever go to any other conventions, like horror conventions or?
I'd love to get some things at horror conventions. That is one of my absolute passions. Yeah, I do loads. I big ones and little ones. I was doing loads of American ones, but they kicked me out and I had the right visa, so now I'm doing them a bit more occasionally because I have to get like a big old work visa each time. If anybody's ever wondering, by the way, San Diego Comic-Con is shit. If you do ever get the chance to go to an American convention and you save up all your pennies, Dragon Con is the shit. It's brilliant, really, really good. That's my reviews.
It sounds like San Diego's a bit commercialised to me.
Just a smidgen. Just endless people, it's just endless queues. You're like, why are you queuing? Man, it's like there's a Walking Dead hat that you get at the end of this, but it's been like it's a 7-hour queue. They've run out of hats, they're just giving away little badges. It's just awful, it's horrible, and it smells weird. Is that the end? Am I going to have to finish on that? Oh my god. Yes, anything.
You just mentioned horror, so what's your kind of particular favourite?
Well, I was chatting to a woman called Dr. Karen Orton, who teaches horror, because I met her at a gig last week, and she's trying to convince me to watch the Serbian film. Which I don't know if she was trying to kind of say, no, it's totally worthwhile. I tend to like French horror films. The French ones, like there's one called Inside, which is my absolute favourite, and one called Olivia that I watched the other day. But British and French ones particularly. I mean, I'll watch anything from the very lightest, tamest, fast forward it midway through to some kind of horrendous, oh my god. Yeah, I'll take the full range. Really good one I recommend, which I don't think anybody saw, is called Borderlands, and it's an English horror film, and it's amazing. Really, really good, really, everything a horror film should be, really spooky, loads of atmosphere, terrible. Yeah. Have you got any recommendations?
I'm quite a fan of Spanish and Korean Eastern ones.
Oh, cool.
Norwegian ones are also quite good.
That's fine, I'm going to bother you. I'll bother you after this. Yeah, that's a corker, isn't it?
Better ones of those, they're slightly less well known. And one of my personal favourites is Tale of Two Sisters.
Let's see
Which is a Korean film, and that's really big on the atmosphere and the story and the kind of misrepresentation. I think that's definitely worth watching.
Oh, cool, I'll definitely give that a go. Because it is like so many fandom things, like finding good comics or good hip-hop songs, you have to sift through a lot of the tat, don't you? There's some corkers out there, they really are. The endless, my mind's just full of this sort of blur of forgettable horror films just for the odd gem. But I might give you my email address, maybe you could send me some foreign ones I haven't seen, because they sound quite exciting. Yeah,
surprisingly good Australian one, The Babadook.
Oh yeah, that was good.
Yeah,
very good.
Yeah, really like that.
There's another one like that as well. It's Wormwood.
I've
heard of Wormwood. It's on my to-do list.
Serious Sam, but a shit ton more zombies. Sorry, Mad Max. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, Lake Mungo, Australian.
Nodding sagely. I'll take notes at the end. Mad frenzy of notes. Thank you. Did you someone know Edith?
Oh yeah, just one thing then, of all the conventions and other events you've been to, what's been the most unusual?
fun. There was a kind of really weird one that I went to in Oklahoma, and it wasn't kind of the most, it was the most unusual for me, but it was just it flew me all the way out there, and it was just this really tiny, sad little steampunk convention that nobody went to, and I was just trapped in a sort of industrial estate in Oklahoma without much to do, just walking through the grey wastelands. Then just got on the plane after the weekend and went back home. That's not a very good story. I'll never tell that one. That's not as good as the Craig Charles and sitting in the mobile home at the sci-fi weekender. They're all weird, aren't they? Let's face it, they're all full of weirdos, and they're all really weird, and that's what makes them brilliant. I think they've all got their different attributes as well. Like, some are really great for a party, some are quite cosy and family orientated, some are grand in scale, some are really handmade and homemade. Yeah, I truly love the World Convention. It's a really nice thing.
Which convention do you recommend mostly for steampunking?
Steampunky
In
ones.
the UK.
In the UK, well, there's not many. They spark up and then vanish just as quickly. A lot of the UK steampunk things. Inevitably, the weekend at Asylum is the big one that loads of people go to, and is very nice. There's a lot going on there, but it's just worth seeking. All of the other ones, as far as they just sort of pop up each year, and they're often put together by people like us just for like the odd year. So it's worth going. Again, Brass Corpus is good for that. It's worth finding some of these nice little steampunk things. Depends where you are. There's normally something going on.
Yeah, speaking of horror conventions, there is one in the UK now. I was there a couple of months ago. It's called HorrorCon, and they had Tom Savini there as guest of honour and stuff like that. It was awesome, really good. And the thing was different to this kind of con where you've got people cosplaying, but people were cosplaying horror characters, but they were constantly in
Don't
character.
walk around that one stone, do you?
Zombies down the end of corridors, and everyone was in character like constantly as a horror character. It was terrifying.
I like it.
The best thing was that it was set in an old steel mill, so it was like completely dark inside in the entrance. You know, wandering through all these screens and stuff, and these people wandering about. It was like, wow.
Oh, wow, that sounds great. Yeah,
great fun.
I might give that a go. Yeah, I'll see if I can get a gig there somehow, somewhere. Super. Well, thank you. You've all been really nice to chat to, actually. Thanks for all the recommendations, and cheers very much.